I will try to be not too long, even though I am requested to be a bit long. I would say, first of all, sincere appreciation we deserve for the job we did. It has been a good conference. I was listening to all of you, even because I had to make conclusion and final remarks, and I learned a lot. So thanks to all of you, and thanks to all of us, because we contributed with our energy, intellectual energy, as much as we could. I think the first consideration to be done is that we didn't fall in the trap of ideologies, of fideisms or partisan views. All of us try to be as objective as possible, working with data, information, polls, without making our personal point of view to be overwhelming on the data. This is something, for instance, I cannot say about on the Agrigento conference, where ideology was stronger. It's typical Italian, no problem. It's as usual, and not here. What is positive, even because we are in an academic field, and ideology should stay a bit aside of our analysis. Having said it, I would just make some recall of a certain speech. More or less, I will make reference to all of them. Some of them, and here I'm not objective, of course, some of them made me more convinced than others. I wouldn't be back to the Agrigento meetings report because we heard already a lot. By the way, from Agrigento we may derive certain lessons. First, migrants' flows have to be managed by the states and communities leaders, together with social agents, churches, stakeholders, and others. The tragedies we were watching over the past years in the Mediterranean derived also from the absence of such a management. Migrations are born spontaneous until a certain way. Sometimes they are fueled by agents or even governments, but have to be managed. Anarchy in migrating, free-flowing of anyone to everywhere are not in the interest of migrants. We talked a lot about receiving countries. We said not so much about migrants. It's not in the interest of migrants to go free-willing and even die, for instance, in the Mediterranean. The reference is going to Mediterranean. It is true that Mediterranean was always a mixing up of populations, ethnicities, religions, but the costs of staying together have never been calculated. Costs in terms of wars, of confrontation, of underdevelopment, of backward. So to state the variety, it's good if managed. If it is not managed, variety could make arise conflicts. That's the lesson we derive from that. Look at Yugoslavia wars, or post-Yugoslavian wars. Look at the situation in Georgia, in Iraq, in Turkey, the Kurd situation, etc. I could go further. So we need to manage migration. Migration had to be governed, avoiding too extreme risks, to consider migration a human right which should not encounter limits. No human rights is free from limits. None. We have borders, yes, we have governments, we have states, we have community rules, we have habits, religions, all these are true limits. And that's why I say we have to manage, we have to rule, we have to govern, otherwise conflicts arise. And, for instance, a proposal coming from Agrigento as kind of social engineering, well, besides the fact that it's a bit, it evoking a bit something sinister in history, Nazi-like rules to organize sociality, it's simply impossible to be performed in accordance with our democratic cultures and practices. Our democracies are not based on engineering humans, beings. Human beings express themselves, organize themselves, have their own rules, laws. They have not engineered. Engineers are good for architecture, for buildings. Instead, we need agreements between governments, and we need agreements between stakeholders, et cetera, in order to stop all the bad things we have even look at here as human trafficking and alliance between criminal organizations and certain governments or among themselves. In Italy now we discover proofs of alliance between Ndrangheta and other, or mafias, call the way you wish, and ISIS, and someone comes to say Italy is not under attack because of those alliances, that this is a suspect. Of course, there is nothing to be said officially, but it's a suspect, just to say where we may go with that. Another aspect which, in my opinion, we should look at is the political risk which is in present-day migration. Present-day migration are different from previous migration for many reasons. I will be back on that. But now I wish just to recall your attention to that. Populist movements we have seen in many countries. I will be back later on another point of my expose. But immigration and populist growth are linked. So we have to manage both together. And once again, this is in the interest of migrants. Migrants have no interest in having worse government than the ones who today try to, give a bit of assistance or to say, yes, come here, and then we see at the rest. The others will say, no, stay home, or even worse. So it's not in their interest the populist movements go to government. Beside any idea you may have in political terms, talking about migrations and populist movement and the raising of populist movements are linked historically. And you have seen even the election of Mr. Trump as something to pay to that principle. Look at Germany. For the first time, we have now an extreme rightist party in government with about 100 deputies because of that. So we have to be keen and attentive on that. It's not true that Europeans do not like immigrants. Absolutely not true. Every poll says that Europeans like migrants with two exceptions. The first exception is illegal or sans-papiers, call the way you like, immigrants, and the second is Islamic immigrants. And they have reasons for that. They have even good reasons for that, not only prejudices. And once again, if the phenomenon would be managed, probably these reactions will lower, because those reactions come from not managing appropriately the issue. So it's, this is to be noted. I appreciated the speech of Mr. Bersin on the future. I was even thinking to Black Swans sometime when he was talking. And interdependence and interconnection, the number of intensity and frequency, which is new in respect to previous migrations in history. History is eternal phenomenon. Immigrations are eternal, from Adam and Eve. They were the first migrants. And that is true. They were the first migrants of the first in the Bible are migrants. But they were only two. when you go to millions, tens of millions, of course, the scale is important in all social phenomena. The second session, North American European models comparison. About the title, Mario, it's true that we did the job. As for the models, we didn't have so many models showed which could be operative. I will be back on that on the conclusion on my speech. Smart and effective controls have to be guaranteed, said Sebastian Rotella. Good. I was attending a meeting on migration at European level a few weeks ago in Brussels, and people coming from immigration countries said that we are wrong in not having a certification system for immigrants. And I asked, technically, how could we set up a certification system for 10 million, 12 million, 30 million persons, unknown, sometimes illegal, of just taking and coming, the poorest? And the answer was, well, it's difficult. But just to say how complicated it is to say smart and effective control or certification for immigrants. Once again, the numbers change a lot. Martin Shane, I also appreciated that also because the numbers he gave were very interesting. But one of the problems I understood from a point of view in Martin analysis was, are we able to define who is nowadays the one claiming for protection or asylum? And we discussed that already yesterday. The reasons to emigrate are changing, and we are not understanding fully who is in front of us, the reasons why. Once upon a time, it was easy. I was searching for a job. I was searching for a salary. I was searching for something I couldn't have at my place. Nowadays, apparently, the things are more complex. And there is one fundamental difference which didn't come in our conference. Most of the historical immigration, accepted to be integrated in the place where they went, even desired to be integrated. I remember a few years ago, the Latino leader in this country requested the President of the States to allow the Latinos to sing national anthem in Spanish. The answer was not, of course, because the national anthem should be sung in English. But this was once again a desire to be integrated. You understand what I mean? Nowadays we have immigrants who do not want to become what the residents are already. And this is something new, which has to be dealt with. And it makes a difference. Anthony Messina was precisely dealing with that when he talked about proliferation of places and kinds of immigrants. And he touched this point. Here I wish to be a bit blunt on that, but it's needed, I guess. Some of you underline with numbers how Islamist immigration is referred to by the locals. And most of the time we see different attitude. It may come from prejudice, from wrong information, whatever, but is there. The discussion is, the attitude, the habit is against a religion or against a political mind. Many scholars say that Islam is, first of all, political phenomenon. Quran is a political book more than a religious book. It's the laws in Islamic society comes from Quran. It's a Quran law. So the society pretends to be built on a book, how they call the book. Our societies are not built on the Bible. Some Americans still pretend that, but they are a minority. You start laughing because, you know, it's perceived as something fun. But there is the rule. Islam is not only a religion, and the problem is not with the religion. The problem is with the political entity, with the cultural entity, with the habits, with the way of being. And here I wish to recall a quotation of someone who paid with life his friendship with Islam, Gandhi. The Mahatma said, "Those who say religion has nothing to do with politics do not know what religion is." He was a very religious person, Gandhi. And he was killed because he wished an integration before his country unfortunately split, you know, all the history of India splitting, etc. This is the problem to be solved, how to deal with political Islam, nothing to do with religion. We accept, I guess, all the religions. In our constitution, religions are accepted, all of them. Media and migrations, I wouldn't deal too much on that because I guess that all of us have enough clear how prejudices or the way the information are built influence people. I wish to take this opportunity to make my compliments to Nino Sottile for his Greek and Latin. It was very interesting. Well, I don't want to be too long. Let me go to certain conclusion I would like to draw by myself for your attention. First, I would like to be back on the question of ideology and communication, which was touched during our conference. Let me remember two pictures which all of us have watched that. They were object of a national conference on journalists. In Italy, I belong to Journalist Corporation in Italy, and we had one morning conference on that, two pictures shown there and debating. The two pictures were the first related to Muhammad, to the island, the Syrian child who was pictured on Turkish shore, and a lot of discussion came. He was like this, he was composed like, why the picture, it has to be shown or not. This is not what I want to recall to you. The other picture is Muhammad, an Islamic child belonging to an Islamic family, from escaping from Burma or Myanmar, call the way you like. And Mohammed Shohayar is pictured, the photograph taken once again in a shore of a river. They are crossing the border to save their life, but the poor doesn't survive to that, and he stays on Naf River in that shore. The two pictures are practically the same, but the way they are treated by the international press is absolutely different. My question to me and to you is, at the end of the day, they are two children killed in so young age, full stop. Because if you read a press, let's say, of rightist press, they treat in a certain way. If you go to liberal, progressive, leftist press, they treat in another way. But they remain two poor children killed at their young age and cutting their possibilities of life. That's what interests me. This is what concerns me. And it concerns me because I should understand why that happens and whether or not I may intervene to make that this doesn't happen anymore or, decrease, decrease, decrease. I'm not interested in knowing whether he is Muslim,